On a tranquil afternoon, a young boy was serenely fishing. Then, quite unexpectedly, a man approached him. In most places, this would undoubtedly be a cause for concern. Yet, surprisingly, it wasn't the case in this instance. The man simply came to ask if he wanted to learn magic. And instead of questioning why a total stranger would appear out of nowhere with such a preposterous proposal, the boy simply accepts it. With a time skip, we witness our protagonist Alec having already mastered magic under the tutelage of a great master, who puts him in simulated dangerous situations to test his abilities. Alec, the young apprentice, demonstrates extraordinary talent even though he doesn't realize it. He masters spells in just one day that would typically take an entire month, and his curiosity and eagerness to learn appear to be boundless. Despite this, his master insists he remain calm, taking him fishing once more and clarifying that he is a genuine prodigy, a person who would likely grasp everything independently over time, even without formal teaching. This revelation makes Alec wonder about the real reason the man is teaching him magic, since there was clearly something more to it. However, his master avoids the question and pretends not to understand. While they were fishing, a fish took the bait and Alec helped the man. After all, even though the man was a great mage, he was truly terrible at fishing. So, days quickly turned into months. The seasons pass quickly, and Alec grows in power and wisdom. He and his master Eldas forge a strong friendship, experiencing shared moments of learning and enjoyment together. However, the day eventually arrives when Alec has to depart. Eldas sends him to the capital and, with a serious look, gives him one piece of advice: never become a court wizard. Alec doesn't grasp the meaning of that warning, questioning why, after all, he had imparted so much magic to him. With his last words before their farewell, Eldas reveals that he knew his mother, a woman who had passed away long ago. With that, the two part ways, and the years go by. Now an adult, Alec joins the Royal Academy of Magic to investigate Eldas's past. He discovers his master was the greatest mage of his generation, even becoming the court wizard, but was ultimately expelled. This revelation leads him to comprehend, or at least conclude, that this was indeed the exact reason Eldas had been so downcast on that particular day. So, Alec decides to join the court and change the system from within, as a way to honor and repay the master who had given him so much. However, his good fortune doesn't last for very long. As soon as he gets the position, the very people he trusted, his own comrades, betray him. He had fought bravely alongside them, but eventually he is expelled from the group. The Crown Prince, who led the team, was always at the forefront of every battle. Banished, the offensive mage, attacked with destructive power. And X, the group's shield, protected them without faltering. Meanwhile, Alec remains further back, bolstering the group's efforts with reinforcement and defensive magic. But the prince despises him, saying he's useless and unworthy of being a court wizard. Banished joins the criticism, asserting that Alec always delays the group by refusing to venture into the most perilous dungeons. They see him as a useless coward. He was accepted into the group only because the king himself had requested it. But now everyone is weary of his presence, and they treat him as nothing but dead weight. The prince then continues to humiliate him, stating that Alec might have been a prodigy at the academy, but in practice he's nothing more than a failure. Alec attempts to defend himself, asking for calm and explaining his reasons, but no one listens. The situation worsens as the prince notices Alec has a dagger, forbidden for commoners. Furious, he snatches the weapon from the mage's hands, ignoring his attempts to explain that the dagger was necessary for the mission. The prince yells at him to follow his rules, declaring he would never accept a commoner as an equal. In a final act of contempt, he rips the court cloak off him, saying Alec isn't worthy of wearing it. But even after being humiliated, Alec doesn't let himself be beaten down. He resolves to prove his capabilities, especially upon realizing the prince lacks the strength to press on into the upcoming dungeon. The risk of death is real. Determined to help him, Alec starts gathering valuable information to prevent a disaster and tries to bring it to the prince. But when he reaches the castle, guards stop him from entering. It is said that, officially, he is no longer a court wizard, and commoners cannot enter without proper authorization. Just then, Lenny shows up, making fun of him and calling him nothing but a commoner. She taunts him further, mentioning a record that claimed Alec had cleared the capital's dungeon up to level 68, while no one else had ever gone past level 37. To her, this is nothing more than a brazen lie. Alec, tired of arguing, ignores her provocations. His sole objective now is to deliver the information to the king before anything dreadful occurs. Lennis gets curious and tries to grab the scroll, but in doing so, she ends up shredding it to pieces in midair. Fed up, she asks the guards to please expel him once and for all. This seems to cause them distress, as they apparently hold Alec in high regard. When he withdraws, our protagonist reflects that he spent 4 years as a court wizard, and now the only thing he can do is apologize to Eldas. He realizes he couldn't change anything in court and ended up exactly like him, but distracted, someone calls his name. A very cheerful girl spots him and instantly goes in for a hug, recognizing him as Alec, and our protagonist in turn recognizes her as Georgia. They actually met at the academy, and Alec begins to explain why he is feeling so dejected. Georgia understands, stating that's precisely why she despises Galdana, meaning that particular place. It seems they're still clinging to that foolish notion of nobles and commoners, which is incredibly antiquated. But if they were to hear her, how could they possibly turn her into a skewer? Alec asks her to lower her voice. A bit calmer, she tells him she's still happy about what just happened and reminds him of something he mentioned 4 years ago, as she had apparently wanted to join his group at some point, and that was precisely why she came to the capital. With that, Georgia stands up, a beautiful smile gracing her face, and invites Alec to form a group and explore the dungeons once more. The poor protagonist is still somewhat traumatized, believing himself to be a useless court wizard. But to her that doesn't matter because what they need is him, not his title. And it's not just her who thinks so, she already has a group and they all want him there. It's true he could have refused while he was the court wizard, but she wanted to at least try it. So Alec, deeply moved, stands up after wiping away a tear and extends his hand as a sign of acceptance. Thus, he joins the A-rank group Lasting Period. This is a group where everyone genuinely wants him and where he will truly be appreciated on his journey to Theo alongside Georgia. Our protagonist reflects on the moment Elders told him not to become a court wizard, and now he truly understands how right Elders was. Meanwhile, the prince's group discusses Alec's departure from the country, mockingly laughing that he ultimately fled to become an adventurer. The prince sneered, claiming Alec, once the academy's top student, had proven himself to be nothing but a common coward. That makes Lenny's happy, because now they won't have a useless commoner in their group anymore. In addition, they plan to replace him with Lord Bogan, who is the son of a genius and in fact a true noble. They truly believe they'll conquer the dungeons with impressive swiftness, and that all will come to know His Majesty's name, but it remains to be seen if that will indeed be the case. On the other hand, Georgia and Alec finally arrive in Theo, the city of adventurers, and she wants to take him to register at the guild first. She expresses great excitement because his grand legend begins right then and there. But as soon as Alec goes in, they don't want to accept him as an adventurer. Georgia attempts to persuade Nisha, the receptionist, to assist him, but unfortunately, rules must be followed. Alec needs a pass that proves he can go past level 30 in a dungeon, and that pass can only be obtained by being part of a group for 2 years. Georgia had also mentioned that a friend would assist with the registration, but this friend arrived and treated the receptionist so poorly that everything became much more complicated. For now, Georgia wants to concentrate on what's achievable, so they opt to visit an entry-level dungeon that doesn't require a special pass. And just like that, we see them fighting a bunch of weird monsters. Georgia uses a spell that allows Alec to move in an incredible way. With this, he takes out several, but it seems the situation only gets worse as more and more creatures appear, which isn't normal. According to the protagonist, they unluckily fought near the nest of these creatures. Georgia tries to act as a tank, drawing the monster's attention, while Alec tries to cast a spell, but to him, this is wrong because it puts them in more danger. Nevertheless, she tells him plainly he could deal with it quite easily, he's just not accustomed to it, and she has faith in him. Hearing this, Alec remembers his master's words about protecting a comrade. He focuses and, utilizing fire magic, takes out numerous foes, as he is no longer a court wizard and is free to move about as he pleases. At that very moment, Georgia rejoices, but then more monsters emerge. Yet, that was precisely what Alec intended. Georgia grasps his intention and conjures a protective barrier, as he casts a powerful lightning spell, incinerating all the insects. Although they felt a sense of happiness, the ordeal was far from over. A huge earthworm emerges, and to make matters worse, it had captured Georgia. But now our protagonist trusts her significantly more, recalling that she possessed the finest reinforcement magic at the academy, while Alec was known for having the best attack magic. Mutually entrusting their lives to each other, Alec begins to recite another spell, a serpent called Fire Sacrifice, which he launches against the worm. Georgia uses a shield to protect herself and is overjoyed to see her friend is finally back. Meanwhile, Alec vaporizes that earthworm in mere seconds. She, extremely joyful, tells him he's still incredibly strong. He was, without a doubt, the most powerful mage she had ever known, both presently and in those days of wild adventures. They faced formidable foes like a three-headed dragon, and every single one of his friends was more fearless than the next. In those moments, as his friends gave their all against the beast and were left breathless, Alec would conjure a spell potent enough to defeat the monster. This flashback is from when they all teamed up to conquer the 68th floor of the dungeons. But anyway, that concludes today's video here. And to better get acquainted with his friends, let's turn back the clock 4 years, specifically to their academy graduation day. While everyone else was quietly celebrating their triumph, that wild group was deep inside a dungeon, battling a formidable dragon, and as a result, their reputation among their academy mates wasn't exactly stellar. At least not until everyone witnessed their actual arrival at the 68th floor of that dungeon, and despite their complete exhaustion upon return, they successfully made it back. These companions broke a record, asserting they had successfully defeated a Hydra, which led to them being respected much more. Still, there was someone who always believed in them, the director of the academy, a professor who isn't explained much, but who personally congratulated them on their graduation. As previously mentioned, the group was comprised of Jorge Inns, followed by Rayonis, the attractive blonde, and naturally our protagonist Alec, with Miss Cryana Rose completing the ensemble. They were a group of friends who held deep trust, affection, and mutual respect for each other. They also harbored great fondness for their Professor Rose, or Rosita, as she was affectionately known by her closest students. However, as we already know, our protagonist eventually separated from his friends to take on the role of a court mage. His reason was the good salary, as he wanted his father to be able to rest. His father had raised him by himself following his mother's death. In addition, there was also the full emotional weight of his master's farewell. His departure was bittersweet, as his friends cared for him deeply and decided to support his choice, even though they didn't want to be apart from him. That's why Jorge made a solemn promise that one day they would rise to become the world's greatest adventurers, and once they achieved that, they would definitely return to recruit Alec. This promise deeply touched the protagonist's heart, but due to his pride, he could not allow himself to be overcome by emotion and shed tears. So, he accepted the proposal, and the bond between them was only paused. It was never truly broken. In the present, George is euphoric about his friend's return. However, after a few beers, he ends up getting completely drunk. After all, he's terrible with alcohol and passes out. Alec, witnessing this, drapes his jacket over him to ensure he stays warm. This act draws the attention of a nearby man who derides him, claiming that such a kind disposition means he'll never be a respected adventurer in this city. Alec ignores him coldly, which annoys the man so much that he almost smashes a bottle over his head. However, before anything further can happen, the man recognizes him and questions what an elite individual such as himself is doing attempting to become an adventurer. He then gives Alec the pass he required and even offers an apology for his discourteous behavior, but with one stipulation: he demands to witness Alec's magic in its full magnificence. At that very moment, George stirs awake. Confused, she asks what the guildmaster is doing there. This makes Alec nearly panic, having come so close to giving himself away. Nevertheless, they follow the instructions and descend to the guild's underground, a location where groups are tested thoroughly before they can advance in rank. It is there Alec has to impress the guildmaster with his magic to obtain the pass. George is worried because they just finished a battle, but Alec reassures him that he still has plenty of mana. He views this challenge as a perfect opportunity to reconnect with his old friends. The guildmaster then introduces himself as Levielsan, leader of the Fio Adventurers Guild, a man whose mere presence naturally commands respect. His name is renowned throughout the kingdom because he led an S-tier group, truly making him a living legend. The moment they take their stances, the duel commences with Alec unleashing a potent lightning spell. However, the master effortlessly deflects it. Leviel also masters magic, but he takes it a step further, using it to fortify his body, achieving impressive strength and swiftness to the point of shattering Alec's shields with simple strikes. The protagonist attempts to resist, yet that is merely the beginning of it all. Alec, far from being intimidated, starts to have fun. He realizes he's been thinking like a support mage, stuck with rules that don't apply here, so he decides to fight for real. He then conjures a magical sword and engages in close quarters combat. The guildmaster continues to dominate the fight through sheer brute force. However, Alec is quite cunning. He observes his opponent, fakes an attack, then summons a lightning bolt, striking with his sword immediately after. Leviel staggers, but instead of falling, he grins, clearly having the time of his life. Then he summons his favorite artifact, a pair of enchanted gauntlets that not only boost his strength but also transform each punch into a deadly attack. Over time, the master even manages to adapt to Alec's electricity, neutralizing a portion of its power. The protagonist, however, doesn't back down, constantly dodging and seeking the perfect opening. He tries to land a decisive blow with his sword, but the master remains relentless. At the very last instant, Alec completely exhausts all of his mana and collapses to the ground, utterly drained. Rain appeared, taunting him for still picking fights with kids, despite being old enough to know better. Additionally, the guildmaster had genuinely put a significant effort into the combat. Nevertheless, he didn't really care. He stated that he had a blast, and therefore chose to grant our protagonist the pass. This made Rain extremely happy, though she laughed seeing her friend passed out on the floor. After that, the group brought Alec to rest, and Rain began to ponder what he had truly experienced as a court mage. The master found her curiosity amusing, remarking that Galdana's people live in a world of illusions, believing they're just picking flowers, when truly, everyone there is merely manure in human form. Rain completely agreed, stating that nobles treated commoners horribly, valuing only their bloodline and social standing. That is why he admired Alex so greatly. The young man had endured all of that for 4 long years. George found this comment very sweet, which really annoyed Rain, who did a poor job of hiding his jealousy. A moment later, Misha, the receptionist, showed up looking for the guildmaster because an urgent problem had come up. Sadly, the master had to leave to take care of the issue. Before he departed, he merely requested that the others refrain from consuming his alcohol supply, a plea Rain totally disregarded as it was the very first thing he proceeded to do. While he drank, he listened to Alex's past experiences. The mage had been held back in many ways so his group wouldn't stand out, and on top of that, he was treated like a mere disposable puppet. What was most infuriating was that Alec was excellent at support magic even though he had not formally studied it. He self-taught himself just to keep pace with that group of fools. To his friends this was something truly admirable, as even the most gifted individuals seldom master more than one magical discipline. For instance, Alec's defensive magic was exceptionally potent, and this infuriated Rain, particularly since they prevented him from utilizing it. He was absolutely furious, especially when he recalled that the Princess of Galdana had branded his friend as useless and expelled him, claiming he was only hindering progress. He was so angry he could barely contain himself, but luckily Alec woke up and started to calm him down. George, for his part, congratulated him on securing the pass, even though he had lost the actual fight, which implied that, in a sense, he had also achieved the victory. This cheered Alec up, because now they could visit the dungeon they had wanted to explore so badly. Still, Ryan insisted there was a more urgent matter, his revenge. He wished to clandestinely infiltrate the Galdana court and completely destroy the Princess of Galdana and the foolish members of his former group, convinced that this was the sole method to truly impart a lesson to them. However, Alec, always the rational one, said that was crazy. He conceded that he was filled with anger and frustration, but emphasized that clashes between groups were absolutely prohibited. Moreover, at this point, he just wanted to fully embrace new adventures alongside his genuine friends. To live happily and peacefully, he believed, would be the best possible revenge against that arrogant woman. After thinking it over, Ryan ultimately agreed. If their group were to become the greatest in the world, that alone would be sufficient to drive that idiotic prince absolutely insane. And it would be even better if the country of Galdana faced a crisis and they had to come begging for help. It would be the perfect chance to tell him to go to hell. While Rain got lost in his revenge fantasies, Alec also felt a weight lift off his shoulders. Transforming their anger into a fierce determination to become the world's foremost adventurers was a far more inspiring goal than simply serving an idiotic prince. Meanwhile, the guildmaster, who was also a rather eccentric yet very wise individual, was confronting his own set of challenges. A group of high-level adventurers was in trouble, which threatened everyone's safety. The young woman named Krista appeared desperately asking for help, and the master promptly accepted. They urgently needed to assemble a rescue team for Krista's group, named Rechroma, who found themselves trapped on the 64th floor of the dungeon. This particular level was notoriously known as the Tank Killer floor, and honestly any individual in their right mind would undoubtedly avoid a location bearing such an ominous name. Meanwhile, Alec waited outside, feeling quite dejected about not being selected, as they were exclusively recruiting A-level adventurers. Just then Gracia, a kind and beautiful woman, appeared and asked how he was. She soon perceived his dejection and, without asking any unnecessary questions, started to heal him using her magic. She told him that if anything ached or troubled him, he could seek her out whenever he needed, as healing magic was her special talent. Alec, touched by her kindness, began to open up somewhat. He said he knew they were no longer in Galdana, and that the adventurers in this region were very different from the nobles there. But still, the traumas and habits he had acquired made him withdraw. Gracia fully understood his feelings, and with some tender words, she managed to make Alec feel significantly better. At that very moment, Ryan appeared, full of enthusiasm, announcing a new adventure. He added that to their great fortune, the guildmaster himself had personally recruited them for the mission that was about to begin. To begin, on the Tank Killer floor, healing magic is strictly unusable, so they must exclusively rely on potions. It's strange that Gracia didn't refuse to go, but according to her, she actually tried to refuse. The trouble is, some idiotic scumbag came up with a foolish idea and ultimately coerced her into participating. And according to that same imbecile, everything was decided by a vote. She simply lost. So they start arguing among themselves while the context is shown. The group called Rechroma was in combat. Almost all of them were defeated, and they sent Krista to the guild to ask for help. Coincidentally, the boss of that floor was someone they had already defeated thanks to Alec, so it's up to him to decide whether or not they'll go on this mission. It may involve more effort than the others, but Alec doesn't mind it, even though he's concerned he might be a bit out of practice. Nevertheless, he will greatly assist the group, which, quite unexpectedly, has been divided into two teams, a primary and a secondary, with them comprising the secondary team. Alec feels guilty, thinking it was because of him they got into this situation, but the rest of the group doesn't agree. It is said there is no one more suited for this mission, as the finest group requires the finest mage. They also reveal that in fact they were almost not allowed to participate at all. They were only accepted because the guildmaster himself took a liking to Alec and expects great things from him. With that, everyone becomes very animated, especially Rain, as the lasting period group is truly back in grand style. They register as a brand new team and immediately head straight for the dungeon, each member thrilled to resume their legendary journey. Best of all, they're doing it alongside the people they love and respect the most. Even so, Alec feels guilty for making them wait 4 years to reunite, but Rain reassures him it was their own decision and they have no regrets. Now they're no longer confined to the academy or any other enclosed space. The world is theirs for the taking and they'll make sure everyone knows their names. And well, that's how today's video ends. Without further ado, the last remaining group now prepares to embark on their journey towards the 64th floor, with the sole purpose of rescuing Rechroma. Normally, an adventurer would be required to clear all of the preceding floors in sequential order before they could reach their desired floor. However, Yoha possesses a special item that enables her to traverse all floors already conquered, without the need to confront the bosses she has previously vanquished. Her magic core allows her to skip directly to the 52nd floor, but the guildmaster also gave her Krista's core. With this, the group is now able to take a direct shortcut, which will lead them straight to the 64th floor. Alec can't grasp why the guildmaster would entrust them with something of such great importance, but what he fails to see is that their group truly represents the guild's trump card. Moreover, the guildmaster possesses an additional core in reserve, which Krista had previously borrowed from her companions who were in peril. In any case, Yoha is already aware of the boss on the 64th floor, and therefore she believes there isn't much to be concerned about, provided that Alec can make a full recovery and avoid running out of mana once more. Gracia seizes the moment to alert the group, reminding them that even an S-rank team was almost entirely annihilated on this particular floor. Everyone gets more serious except for Hornist, who can't contain his excitement and wants to face the challenge as soon as possible. Before entering the dungeon, he declares that this level, the Tank Killer floor, the 64th floor, will be the new beginning for the legendary adventurer team lasting period. With that, Yoha tosses the orb skyward and utters a spell that immediately teleports them to the west sector of the dungeon, landing them directly on the infamous dreaded floor. The group's arrival immediately triggers the appearance of numerous undead skeletons nearby. However, dispatching these wretched monsters proves to be easy work for Hornist. Smiling, he summons an artifact that, upon activation, transforms into a spear. With an agile movement, he pierces the skeletons in front of him, effortlessly taking them out. Immediately after, he charges at the enemies without a plan, which forces Yoha to quickly come to his support. Meanwhile, Alec, quite taken aback, remarked to Kezia that he had never envisioned Hornist also possessing an artifact. Kriya then explains to Alec about Almaresteka, Hornist's black spear, which is renowned for its lethal cutting and piercing capabilities, and for being virtually indestructible, thanks to its unbreakable enchantment third. She further states that such a dangerous weapon is perfectly suited for someone as impetuous as he is. Alec agrees, commenting that they might not even need to do anything since Hornist seems capable of handling it all himself. Desiring to participate, Alec inquires if Hornist requires assistance, but he declines, instructing Alec to conserve his strength for confronting the genuine adversaries. Alec then grasps Hornist's true intention. He is merely assessing the group's current strength and their overall rhythm. Feeling reassured by such a dependable companion, Alec advances, slightly lowering his defenses, when he abruptly perceives that an attack is imminent from his rear. He reacts rapidly and casts a lightning spell behind him, but it doesn't strike anything at all. For a moment he thinks he imagined it, until he realizes there's an enemy hiding its presence, or perhaps an invisible enemy. Alec strikes with his magic blade, compelling the foe to expose itself. It is a Shadow Reaper. Hornist finds it amusing to see that his old comrade still possesses sharp skills and entrusts the opponent to Alec, as he himself doesn't know how to deal with invisible enemies. The Shadow Reaper attempts to strike once more, but Alec swiftly leaps, delivering a precise blow that instantly vanquishes the creature. Observing the others, Alec realizes that no one appears taken aback by the Shadow Reaper's sudden appearance. This suggests that they were all previously aware this particular floor was overrun with this specific kind of foe. In reality, they were testing the Rusty Attack Mage's current abilities. Soon after, even more undead skeletons began to surround them. Hornist and Alec push forward, moving together side by side as Gracia and Yoha provide them with covering support spells. After a series of strikes and spells, Alec ends the fight with a single powerful lightning spell, clearing the field. With that, he is sure the area has been completely cleared. However, Hornus then notices something quite strange. Alec appears to have exclusively relied on the lightning spell recently, even though he possesses a wide array of other combat spells within his repertoire. The reason for this is connected to an undisclosed incident involving the royal clown whom Alec previously served, an event he very much prefers not to discuss. When asked, he just lies, saying he uses that spell because it's the fastest to cast. Hornus knew full well that Alec was concealing something, and on this occasion he was determined not to let him escape without providing some answers. He confronts him directly, but before he can extract the truth, the ground begins to violently tremble, shaking the entire floor. The origin of that destructive vibration comes from the depths of the dungeon, and Yoha quickly deduces that the floor's boss has awakened. Propelled by a spell cast by Yoha, Ornish takes the lead, surging ahead with his lightning ability as the remaining three members trail behind him at a considerably more leisurely speed. When they reach the end of the corridor, they find a vast desert plain. Alec observes Ornis gazing at the ground with a look of disappointment, and intrigued he too glances down, finding himself surprised by what he sees. An adventurer by the name of Loki is currently being chased in an almost comical manner by a dinosaur-like monster. It is no less the floorboss hunting the pathetic adventurer, who desperately pleads for assistance. Ornish, however, demonstrates no willingness to come to his aid. Loki, a support mage renowned as the foremost trickster and troublemaker within Krista's group, Rikroma, finds himself in clear distress. Upon noticing Ornish observing from afar, making no move to assist him, Loki issues a grim threat, shouting that he will surely haunt him for the remainder of his life should Ornish allow him to perish in that spot. Ornish, however, simply ignores the plea, observing with a cold demeanor as the mage trips and lands face first on the ground. Alec attempts to rush to his assistance, but Krasia holds him back, clarifying that this is a classic Loki ploy, a trap in fact. And as she foresaw, the very instant the monster lowered its defenses to close in on its victim, Loki deployed potent trap magic, causing numerous gigantic magical blades to materialize and impale the creature. Feeling confident, he stands up, certain that he had inflicted significant damage. However, as he mocks the blow, the monster unleashes its most powerful magical attack. Loki realizes too late that he's about to be annihilated, until Ornis finally intervenes, jumping in to save him from the fatal blow. Meanwhile, Alec, Krasia, and Yorha descend to join the fight against the boss. Alec prepares for combat, but the monster charges ahead with unexpected quickness, compelling Yorha to erect a protective barrier. Just before Alec can summon his lightning, he observes the creature abruptly turning around. Yorha thinks the monster is retreating, but Alec immediately understands. It's heading towards Ornish, or more precisely towards Loki. The creature seeks vengeance. Alec and the others yell for Ornish to get Loki out of there, but he decides to play around a little first. By sliding underneath the monster's body, Ornish successfully distracted, allowing him to position himself behind it. As expected, the furious boss shifts its focus back to Loki. This time, Ornish seizes him and hurls him in the direction of his comrades, instructing them to hold on to him, but none of them make an effort to catch him. Loki is on the ground groaning with pain as Yorha orders Kasha to swiftly get him out of there and to a secure location. Kasha attempts to drag him up the mountainside to a location where the monster is unable to reach him. However, Loki only complicates things, stubbornly refusing to assist and instead burdening her with his full weight. It's precisely this kind of attitude that makes him so unpopular. When they finally reach the top, Kasha gives her teammates a thumbs up, signaling that Loki is safe. At that moment, Alec gets ready for the next round and calls upon Yorha for magical reinforcement, which she promptly grants. She invokes the power of the five senses on Alec, amplifying all of them to the max, thereby creating the perfect magical enhancement. Now feeling strengthened, they launch their decisive assault against the monstrous creature. An energized Hornish charges forward first, but the creature skillfully defends itself. He attempts to thrust his spear into it, but the monster uses its tail as a whip, violently slamming Hornish to the ground. Yorha rushes to assist him, lifting her shield once again, yet the monster charges a second time. The impact begins to crack her shield, and her strength starts to wane. Their sole hope now rests with Alec. Meanwhile, Loki, having calmed down a bit, observes the scene and spots a familiar figure among the group. He quickly recognizes the individual and, impressed, murmurs that the lasting period group is reunited once more, and this time they are stronger than they have ever been. Loki watches in pure amazement as Alec begins to cast his spells. He remembers a simple rule: a mage capable of casting 3 spells simultaneously is talented. One who casts 5 is considered a genius. However, Alec far surpasses this. Right before Loki's very eyes, he casts 20 spells simultaneously, causing numerous magic circles to encompass the monster. At the very moment Hornet rises again and plunges his spear into the creature's tail, Alec unleashes his ultimate lightning strike combined with acceleration magic. The power and speed are so overwhelmingly intense that Loki struggles to keep pace. Alec readies his final blow, and the boss, sensing the impending devastating power, tries desperately to make an escape. The monster breaks free from the magic and attempts to attack them, but Kasha intervenes, pinning the creature with a relentless volley of arrows. Then, Yorha employs her restriction magic, and simultaneously, Alec conjures his seal of the four directions. This truly is effective teamwork between the group members, and indeed, it's evident that teamwork makes the dream work. At this point, the monster appears to be even more composed than Alec himself. As anticipated, it attempts to conjure a new yet feeble spell. Alec then contemplates the final spell he wishes to unleash, a mystical ability that the Elder imparted to him during those bygone days. During his training, the Elder had mentioned that solely 2 individuals within the Academy possessed the capability to wield that specific magic, the brilliant mind who originated it and Alec. Now, the moment had arrived for Alec to truly demonstrate his exceptional abilities. He activates Reflect, a rare ability that conjures an amplified version of the magic the enemy is invoking. A massive red sphere materializes, striking the monster directly, but Alec isn't finished with his assault this time, as he intends to completely immolate the monster. He then activates Helios and an intense fire erupts, engulfing the creature. After delivering his characteristic attack, he turns to depart, fully aware that a certain madman is still going to assault the monster, and indeed, the lunatic proceeds to do just that. He expertly employs his piercing and slicing techniques to cleave the monster into 2 distinct halves, then immediately leaps forward to confront Alec, clearly agitated at being labeled a madman. Alec tries to calm him down, saying it was just a compliment, and provokes him by calling him a genius. The other group members join the two, and they begin to taunt Ornest, reminding him that when they were at the academy, he was merely 4th place, a good distance from being considered a genius. Then the intruder makes his appearance, and it is Loki. He reveals that he knows Alec and that he used to work as a court mage. Loki recounts that he and others had heard the tale of Alec defeating a Hydra, and while many might doubt it, he truly believes it. Alec confesses that he is no longer a court mage, and Loki ridicules the nobles for letting such a talent slip away. Afterward, Loki requests a potion to regain his strength, clarifying that he had given all of his potions to his companions who were engaged in battling the boss. This greatly shocks the group, as they were convinced the monster they had just vanquished was the actual boss. Loki then laughs and proceeds to reveal the truth. There are 2 bosses, and the one they just fought was the weaker one. His team utilized him as a distraction to draw the less intelligent boss away, allowing them to confront the actual adversary. The members of the group are intrigued and inquire about the true boss's power level. To their astonishment, Loki discloses that the genuine adversary is an undead knight, completely encased in armor from head to foot, and based on his observations, there appears to be nothing whatsoever within it. So, they're facing a monster that's not only dead, but has no physical body. Loki further elaborates that due to its armor, physical attacks merely impede its movement but never truly vanquish it. So he retrieves a small cross-shaped weapon and gives it to Alec, stating they require his assistance to survive. He remarks that Alec appears to be the most suitable candidate for leading the front line, primarily because the monsters would probably underestimate his capabilities. As soon as Alec holds the cross, it transforms into a Shua, and he recognizes it as the divider of heavens and earth. Ornest is shocked, not understanding why Loki would give such a powerful relic to Alec. Yorha correctly deduces that Loki plans to position Alec as the primary combatant, which Loki himself confirms. Yorha reacts indignantly, questioning how they expect Alec to fight with just a sword and no magic, particularly against an armored undead foe. Without a word, Loki quietly moves away, behaving in a suspicious manner. The other members observe him with suspicion. He simply states it's his turn now, and he will surprise the monster by initiating a direct assault. However, something about his behavior seems peculiar. A lingering sense remains that there's an underlying motive to his actions, and the group can only hope that this enigmatic young man isn't harboring any sinister plans against his long-standing companions.